Today we are here with Madam Brinda Karat, Politburo member of the CPI. She has been to Manipur with a team of three and witnessed a first-hand account of the violence that is happening over there, about the lapses of governance and about so many other issues which were there. So, Madam, let me come directly to the question. You were there in Manipur recently. So, in an overall scenario, a 360-degree angle, what did you perceive in your visit?
So difficult to say because I've been to Manipur before, and my impression of Manipur as a beautiful state, a state rooted in its history, a state with strong traditions, strong women, strong movements of resistance against what people considered state oppression, big struggles, many of them led by women. And I had also visited the women's markets there, and I was extremely impressed by them because I think that was, one of the most inspirational experiences I had to see women economically independent, surviving, building survival strategies for their families. But when I went this time, I saw a completely different, ravaged Manipur. And it deeply, deeply affected me and members of my team. I was with PK Srimati, the president of the All India Democratic Women's Association, Mariam Davle, the general secretary. So for me, seeing Manipur in the situation it is, I couldn't believe that in such a short period, a state could be so deeply divided, its people so deeply divided, hostile to each other. And quite frankly, when I went to the so called borders, it was as though I was at Wagah border. I believed it was like Wagah border. On one side were the valley people, on the other side, the hill people, community wise, the Maites, the other side, the Kukizo and the Mar and the tribal communities. And there was literally a border which was guarded by security forces. So, in our minds, the first question was how and why did this happen? How could it happen? And quite frankly, the only reason it could happen is because of state complicity. The utter failure of the central government, the utter failure of the state government, the utter failure of the chief minister, and the politics of narrow identity politics being manipulated for a purpose. I mean, whose purpose is solved? Everybody has suffered. And we saw that suffering firsthand. We saw the suffering. And it was deep and it was very, very disturbing for us.
We have seen so much violence in Manipur, but this one, which has taken all the communities, especially the state, by surprise, because this was very unexpected from all quarters. But as you have said, there is an utter failure of governance. If such a similar situation happens somewhere in India, in the rest of the states, or even in the Northeast, let's take for example, what do you think will happen? Because has been a prolonged violence for more than 100 days now, going more than 100 days. So, do you feel that this violence is being stirred on and on as there are so many government troops, central forces over there? You must have seen that firsthand. So, do you think that the government can control this situation within some time, or do you think that this allowed to go on for some other reasons?
I think that's a very relevant question because I think in any other state in India, the kind of violence we saw on the 3rd and the 4th of May, when it just burst out, as you say, because I'm sorry, I have to say both sides. I hate to use that word, both sides, but that's the reality. So I'm forced to use it. So on both sides, everybody we met, they all said everything was so unexpected and it just happened. And we could never think that we would be faced with this. The extent of it. I mean, 60,000 people displaced, thousands of homes burnt, women brutalized. I mean, it is unbelievable. And if it had happened in any other state in India, within a few hours, definitely a few days, there would have been curfew, there would have been the army out everywhere, and they would have controlled the situation.
Yes, there are more than 80,000 troops on the ground of different central and forces.
I mean, the fact is, why was it not done? And this is something which is a question which really remains
Do,
unanswered.
do you feel that the lack of attention, especially from the Lok Sabha, the what do we say? People had said that the Mon Ka Brat, the Prime Minister has taken about Manipur. This is something
You
which
know,
is
I
done.
said when I was in Manipur, and I say it again to you, I think this must be a world record by any leader of the stature of our Prime Minister. I don't think anywhere in the world, when a part of a country is burning, the head, the executive head of that country, should remain silent. Forget going to that place, which is the first thing somebody should have done. Instead of doing that, and forget that, not even a single word. And Mon Vrat is a very correct word to use. But it was Vrat for whom? It was Vrat to escape accountability. It was Vrat to escape culpability. That was what the Vrat was for. The Vrat was not for the interests of the people of Manipur. The Vrat was for concealing.
Fair, has not been ethical, they have not been responsible, and they also lack the moral spine to keep law and order, especially at this time in Manipur. And about the other episode that you must have at least heard of our Manipur assembly, which lasted for only like 11 minutes, and the 3 minutes was spent on Chandrayaan and an obituary
I mean,
reference.
this is such an insult to the people of Manipur. It's such a mockery of the Constitution of India. And it shows such contempt for the feelings of the people. I mean, you have elected representatives. What has been the role of those elected representatives? Some, their own houses have been burnt. The reality is that many MLAs said we can't come there to the assembly. So why are you holding this session in any case? So the session was held because by law, if you don't hold it within a period, you are outside the parliamentary procedures and liable to be questioned and a constitutional crisis. And so they had to call it. And so they called it. And when they called it, they added further injury to the people of Manipur, to the processes of justice in Manipur, and to the sufferings of the people. You didn't discuss the sufferings of the people.
They did. They did.
I mean, what kind of government is this?
But at the same time, Amit Shah is saying that Biren is performing quite well, so there is no need to remove him, as he said in the parliament this time.
My own assessment, after going to Manipur and meeting quite a wide range of people from both sides, of course, there are many people, I'm sure, who are supporters of Mr. Biren in the valley. There may well be. There may be people who think he's looking after our interests. But generally, across all sections, and particularly those who have been victimized, all those hundreds and thousands I met in the camps and in the hill areas also, they all feel a political solution is required, but the first condition for a political solution must be the removal of the chief minister. Because as long as this chief minister is in office, his main job is going to be to defend himself. He's not going to be bothered about the people. He's only going to think, Baba, how do I defend myself? So you've got to remove him to come to a solution.
But now that we have seen recent yesterday also and day before yesterday, there are so much killings happening, going on, shooting between the two communities. Many people have lost their lives still. Yet the BJP says that they are still able to contain it, except for some sporadic incidents now and
I
then.
mean, this is absolute misleading of the country, misleading of the people, misleading of parliament. And what the Prime Minister said only more recently, that everything is peaceful in Manipur. This is totally misleading the country. And the Prime Minister and the Home Minister is particularly responsible for this. He made so many assurances when he went. First of all, he went only after 3 weeks. And ultimately, when he went, he made so many assurances after all those discussions and meetings. But none of them have been implemented. People are still suffering. There's nothing on the ground. So, this government at the center, with all its tall claims, has its policies, its politics, its attempting to conceal its own culpability, has resulted in the most unfortunate situation for the whole of India, that in our own country we have the Wagah border within our own country, not with any other country, but between citizens of India. And I think it is a tragedy, the like of which we have not seen for a long, long time.
Political observers have uh, opined that there is something more than what meets the eye for all this violence going on. Basically, a capitalistic agenda of sorts, because of some say like the
Yeah.
act is policy and for economic gains, as bilateral trades maybe with Myanmar and India also comes into the picture, and including the mineral wealth and the other resources of Manipur, which is the entry and the exit point, the final border to Myanmar. So, do you feel that there are some sort of a policy going on that the government is deliberately doing this violence? Sorry, I'm perpetrating and keeping this violence breathing on, so something can be gained in a economic
Well,
manner.
I mean, I can't make a one to one explanation like that. But what we have seen in the rest of India also applies to Manipur, which is that at present the government is following a trajectory of policies which seeks to hand over our natural resources to big corporates. And Manipur, and particularly the hill areas of Manipur and the land of the forests in Manipur, is known to have oil resources,
Fuel, petroleum,
petroleum. Oil is, oil is,
yes,
is the new gold.
like
And you have
platinum, chromite,
chromite
limestone.
and so many other minerals. So if you look at the way the government has moved in other states, it has directed its policies to grab natural resources and hand them over to corporates. Manipur, because of the specific uh, conditions of protection given to Manipur under the Constitution of India, does have an added layer of protection. Now, by creating such a situation of conflict, the government believes it will be freer to shift the policy measures in a more direct way to grab those resources. And we know the long list of corporates who are interested in oil and minerals, who are very, very close friends of the government in power, and those who are heading this government in the center of the central government.
Right.
So I always believe there is an economic dimension to it. The other thing, and the most unfortunate thing, is about our borders. Now, if you look at the incompetence of this government, all the border areas, whether you look at Kashmir in Pakistan, you look at Bengal in Bangladesh, now you look at Manipur in Myanmar, on all these borders, the government of India has taken such a position and such a hostile position for political reasons. And therefore, instead of trying to solve a problem, instead of trying to find a resolution for the problem of illegal migrants, of which there are, there's no doubt about it. But instead of trying to find a resolution, you want to dub whole communities as illegal immigrants. You want to dub all Muslims in India as anti national. You want to dub all tribals who are in the Northeast as being of questionable descent, and whether they are Indians or foreigners. So, whatever you are doing is in a very toxic agenda which is affecting more and more people. First of all, they said, oh, it's Muslims. And then Kashmir. Now Manipur. Earlier between Bangladesh. So everywhere this government puts its step, you are finding deep hostilities created. So this, I think, is a very major issue for the people of India. That India, with its huge diversities, if it has a government in power in Delhi, which has this idea of one nation, one leader, one language, one religion, and interpretation of that religion also one interpretation, you are going to find these deep divisions which are being created. And I think Manipur is one of the areas which has been deeply affected by this. And I must say, I know that there has been deep suffering on all sides, and especially women have been deeply impacted. But I can tell you, I met the women victims of rape and sexual assault in the hill areas, the tribal women. And I was so deeply shocked and horrified that such crimes do not lead to an outrage, because in Manipur, the divisions in society are so deep that even such an atrocity becomes divided. I think that is a tragedy for us in the women's movement.
I agree.
It's a tragedy.
It is.
And then it's not as though if mighty women have faced the same thing, I'm the first person. Because a woman's body can never become the site in which atrocities are committed. But if I have seen that, I have met the women, but if other women don't come out in support of them, what is the use of everything we fought for?
Yes.
What is the use of it? I feel deeply distressed. I wish I could, I have so much respect for our women in Manipur. I can't tell you.
Yes, we have all
I have
Imas
so
and
much
Mera
strength.
Saibis. They are the ones who are on the
They fought
forefront.
the police, the
The
army,
army
done
have-
so much. But today, not to express solidarity with women whom you know to have been sexually assaulted. I mean, I feel it's this politics, it's this toxic politics which has been injected into that society
Yes.
by these forces.
In a so-called democratic setup in this digital era, when
Yeah.
the government should function, their main responsibilities to protect the lives and the property, public property, and to safeguard the interests of the state with all communities in tow. So, would it be fair to say from your side that the government, the BJP government, both to the center and to the state, has utterly failed in its duty to safeguard the public? That you
I would absolutely, entirely agree with that assessment. That is my assessment too. It is my party's assessment. I think it's the assessment. Anybody who has been to Manipur, you are right. It is the utter failure of the central and state government which has led to the present situation. There's no doubt about that in my mind. And I really express my solidarity with the sufferings of the people of Manipur.
One last question. What would be the way forward when you say that this we have no political accountability, the BJP government has no ethics, the idea is to safeguard the public. What would you say would be the way forward? Would the civil organizations need to come forward, or would the public have to act? And when the next vote comes, I don't know what's going to happen, but what would you say from your side? It would be the way forward.
No, I really strongly believe that we need a political solution. See, it's all very well to talk about the meeting of minds and the meeting of hearts and for people to get over this. And that's all true. It's very true. We do need that. But ultimately, you have to resolve some of the issues which have come up. That requires a political solution. For that political solution, again, I would repeat, you have to have people in power who you can trust. And therefore, continuing with the present chief minister, it's not going to happen. I'm sorry.
That means that Biren has
It's
to
not
go
going to
at
happen.
all costs
He has
in the
to
larger
go.
picture.
In the larger picture, for the interests of Manipur, a man who has presided over this directly. I mean, I would say the Home Minister, Prime Minister, all are responsible. But as a first step, I definitely believe the Chief Minister has to go and somebody else in power who can, at least through his actions and words, make some amends to the people of Manipur for what has happened. That would be required. That is what I feel.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And it's been a pleasure talking to you. We hope that this message cuts through all communities in Manipur and let there be peace and order. Once again, let accountability be there. Let the democracy, which is supposed to be there, function once again. Thank you. Thank you, madam.